And we are back here at the Rotax Back Challenge African Open here at Formula K in Benoni. Probably the best circuit in the country for any karter. We're watching the mini maxes here. It's Gazi Mortlakai on pole ahead of Troy Snyman and Leviwa Sabudla from Squadra Corsa there in third.
So you've done a lot of laps around this circuit. So talk to me about what the plan is for today, because today is all about one race.
Well, I'm going to try and win them all.
Great, I'm happy about that. So who are the main guys that you have to watch out for?
Troy, Joachim, and Berlin.
And Gazi as well, because he's been practicing with you a lot.
Yeah.
And he's done as many laps as you've done here.
Yeah.
So how you plan to do that?
That's a good question. I would plan to not look back as much as I normally do, and yeah.
You are doing a lot of racing and a lot of laps on the circuit in recent times. Talk to me about what the plan is for today.
Well, the plan is to try for me to do my best and try to get good starts and just go fast and try to win.
Is it nice to be on a circuit which you know?
Yes, this circuit is very, very fun. It's one of my favorites.
You join us here at the start of race one at the African Open 2020, and as the flag drops, they get all the way into turn one, 3 abreast down into turn one now, through the long left sweep and into the right hander they go, and it's a Troy Snyman ahead of Mortlakai, but Mortlakai not giving it up easy. These two will be battling it out all season for top honors in the 2020 National Championship, but it was Mortlakai that walked away with it, winning it long before the final round, and he is now the 2020 national champion and has set himself a seat at the World Finals in Portimao in January. But it is now all about who's going to win out the final race here on the day, because he will be crowned African Open champion and he will get himself a seat to go to Portimao and represent South Africa over there. But in Minimax at the moment is Troy Snyman with a little bit of a lead over that of Gazi Mortlakai. Just behind him, Leviwa Sabudla, a front runner in the rock categories, and just come back from Italy at the moment, is definitely giving them a hard time, as Gazi has to look over his shoulder just to keep him at bay. But Joaquim de Oliveira looking very, very fighty there in fourth place. He was able to walk away with 3 wins in Cape Town. It was an easy win for him, and he's just won in his regional event there last weekend. So he's used to winning ways and won't be used to being down there in fourth place. But as I say that, Eric Haystack looking for a way down the inside of Joaquim.
Joaquin obviously, have not been at this circuit. Mortlakai almost lives at this circuit. I've seen him like 3 times a week practicing. Snyman, being a KwaZulu-Natal guy, have not been there that often. I think they've been here twice. So as I say, Mortlakai proving that seat time is imperative, and having won the title and knowing that they're going to Portugal, they decided that 3 times a week we will come and spend hours at the circuit with Yui, all looking after him, and as you say, seat time pays off. And the physicality of a circuit like Portimao, because it's a very physical circuit, it's also undulated like this one, very much big wide open circuit, got very fast into turn 1 and 2, then you start climbing up and then you go down again, dropping like you do here. So I think that physicality of that circuit is important for the guys to get seat time and get used to that sort of conditions.
Yeah, there is no substitute for seat time, but we were saying a lot of the drivers, the one thing I noticed going into this, we thought those from the northern regions, we have a little bit of a heads up on the other drivers, but I saw it in the Bambino class as well as in Micromax, that even drivers from out of town can pick up this track very quickly because it is so fast and flowing. It can be easy to learn and a little bit a little bit more forgiving is what I'm trying to say. So a lot of these drivers that have come from out of town have managed to get themselves on pace, and saying that, Joaquim de Oliveira actually sets the fastest lap time of 1:11.7 around here. So definitely a circuit that you can get to grips with quickly. but a lot of these drivers at the end of their equipment for the season, so you'll see a little bit of gaps forming throughout the field. Liviwe Sambudla just holding out that third place now ahead of Joaquin de Oliveira, because he's under pressure now from Eric Haystack. Eric Haystack, a relatively newbie in comparison to the other drivers in the field. I think he had one season of Micromax under his belt last year and is straight up into the Minimax. So a baptism of fire for that of Eric Haystack, but also part of the Extreme team and mentored by Leroy Poulter and Leroy's brother Lyle, doing a great job on the actual maintenance of their kart. But the story is what's happening out in front at the moment. It's Troy Snyman and Gazi Mortlakai. Gazi not looking to fight with Troy anytime soon. It looks as though he's just holding station behind him to try and maintain the gap they have now over the second group of karts, which is Liviwe Sambudla, Joaquin de Oliveira and Eric Haystack. Just pulling into the back there, though, is Wandile Pule, who's just managed to get himself onto the back of that group. So what was a 2-way battle for third has now become a 4-way battle for third, with these two just getting a gap over the rest of the field.
But one thing also very important, there's an international trophy event held at Portimao the first week in December. And so far, 5 South African drivers have managed to score a seat for that event.
Yeah, so a lot of our drivers will be getting a little bit of extra seat time to see how they match for the actual final. And I think our own Nicholas Ruiz will also be doing it as well. He's been doing a lot of international events and cutting his teeth overseas. His dad, the owner of Ruiz, a karting team, who represented here. We watched them in the senior maxes with Akil Alibi. So a lot of these drivers spending a lot of time overseas. Liviwe Sambudla just getting back from Italy himself. So trying to cut their teeth overseas as much as possible and measure their skills against the world's best.
Obviously, people always say, do I need to go overseas? I always say to parents, if you do not go overseas, you can never measure yourself against the international drivers. And it's always such a big eye-opener for them when they go overseas and realize that there's not 10 drivers on the grid, there's 36 drivers on the grid. We've had 63 drivers qualify within 1 second in the class, and 20 drivers within 0.2.
Yeah, I'll never forget my first experience of the World Finals in 2000, I think it was 2007. The top 15 DD2s separated by less than half a second. It was absolutely phenomenal, and the racing was brilliant as well. But it is something, a bit of an eye-opener. But a lot of these drivers have had experience over there. Troy Snyman is definitely one. Gazi Mortlakai, not just yet, but Troy Snyman has done a few international events. In fact, was leading the Mini-Max World Final up until the final lap. As we look at Liviwe Sambudla coming back at Joaquin. So Joaquin obviously trying to make a move into the hairpin of the right-hander, and he goes from 4th to 3rd, then 3rd to 5th. Sorry, I lied to you, 6th. So a big move there, losing a lot of power. Oh, Wandile Pule and Eric Haystack coming together, and that just allows Joaquin to regain at least 4th place. So a lot of movement and shaking happening through that section of the track, but it looks like Liviwe Sambudla has held on to 3rd with Joaquin de Oliveira in 4th. And Eric Haystack in 5th ahead of Wandile Pule. No, Wandile Pule is still ahead of Eric Haystack as a checkered flag comes out. It is Troy Snyman who takes the win ahead of Gazi Mortlakai, Liviwe Sambudla in 3rd, Joaquin de Oliveira in 4th ahead of Eric Haystack and Wandile Pule. Into race 2 we go now. The starting position is your fastest lap from race 1, and strangely enough, you don't see our two protagonists on the front row. It is Eric Haystack and Joaquin de Oliveira that start 1st and 2nd. Eric Haystack a bit slow off the line. It's going to be Joaquin that goes around the outside of him, but Liviwe Sambudla from nowhere gets the whole shot ahead of Joaquin de Oliveira. So Liviwe Sambudla leads out Joaquin de Oliveira ahead of Gazi Mortlakai and Troy Snyman. The big loser there, Eric Haystack, from the pole position, from 2nd place, drops himself down into 5th. But it's the same 5 drivers we saw battle it out earlier. We're only missing Wandile Pule, but Wandile has dropped down behind that of Berlin Robinson. So I think they're going to be battling it out for their positions, with these 5 hanging it out for the lead. At the moment, though, it's Joaquin de Oliveira ahead of Liviwe Sambudla. holding off the charge from Gazi. More mistake from Joaquin. Wheel touch between himself and Leviwe. That's given two opportunities to pass there. It's Gazi Motlakai that gets past. Troy Snyman tries to squeeze his way in there, but Leviwe drives right around the outside of him, and that's drops Troy Snyman right out of contention for the battle for the lead at the moment. But it is still early days. 8 laps of racing over 1.6 Ks. Anything can still happen as we watch them down the main straight. Look for the slipstream from Troy Snyman. Is he going to look for a way past Leviwe Sambula just yet? Not just yet. Yes, he does. Sticks it down the inside, around the outside of 1, into the inside of 2, and relegates Leviwe Sambula behind Eric Haystack. So Eric Haystack, I said, would be fighting with Berlin and Wandile Pule, but I was completely wrong, because it looks like he's brought himself up into that 4th place ahead of Leviwe Sambula. So these two need to get their heads down to get back onto the front pack. We know that Eric Haystack's fast, but Leviwe Sambula is having nothing of it. He sticks it down the inside. So that, to me, a little bit of a mistake. He might need to hang on to Eric and use his pace. We know he's got pace to get himself back onto the front group. But if those two start battling now, they're going to lose the front group. Speaking of the front group, though, it is Joaquin de Oliveira under pressure from Gazi Motlakai into this hairpin.
Yes, Motlakai, in the last national came there, already have won the championship, and then duly got himself involved in a massive battle. And I think it's important, when somebody has won 8 to 10 heats out of 12, coming to an event, always at the front, it's important to have battles to get to the front, because when you get to the international events, as you know, 36 people on the grid.
Speaking of battling, though, it does look like Gazi Motlakai has moved himself up from 2nd place behind Joaquin de Oliveira into turn 2 there, into 1st, and that's also allowed Troy Snyman through on Joaquin de Oliveira. So Joaquin, the big loser there, he thought he had a decent lead, but around the outside went Gazi Motlakai, and they went side by side into turn 2. A bit of rubbing is racing, and unfortunately Joaquin drops himself down to 3rd.
Yes, and I think now it's important that Troy keeps his composure. Joaquin, I don't know if he's got enough to come back at Gazi and Troy, or is he just going to leave him to be like they've done all season. Motlakai's in his 2nd season of national racing.
Yeah, so Motlakai learned a lot. He was with Wesley Orr in the beginning, as was Troy Snyman. Motlakai now being run by Huey Orr, Wesley Orr's father. So a lot of experience being parted onto these youngsters. Troy Snyman running with Ralph Ullendal, who is probably one of the hardest racers to race in a kart. A former European DD2 champion, did very well in Europe. I think he finished 2nd in the Rotax DD2 World Final. But on the last lap, though, Joaquin de Oliveira just doesn't look like he's got the pace. He's just hanging on, and on this final lap, the race is going to be between Gazi Motlakai and Troy Snyman in race 2. 1:11.699 for that of Gazi Motlakai, and Snyman a 1:11.7. Joaquin de Oliveira 1:11.728. So the pace is close, but it just looks like Gazi Motlakai does have enough to get through this final lap ahead of Troy Snyman. It is only half a car length at the moment. Whether Troy can find some time on the brakes, close that gap, and have a move done on him as soon as possible, I don't think he's close enough just yet. This will be where he could do the dive. Whether he's going to be brave enough to do it from that distance, if that was going to happen, that would have been a last dive, and probably would have ended both their races. Into the corkscrew they go. We haven't seen many passes happen in here, so it looks like Gazi Motlakai is going to head away with a race 2 win. So a win each for Troy Snyman and Gazi Motlakai here on the day. Troy Snyman gets his head down hard, but I don't think it's going to be enough to get across the line ahead of Gazi Motlakai, and Gazi taking a win here in race 2 ahead of Troy Snyman, Joaquin de Oliveira, Eric Haystack in 4th, and Leviwe Sambula rounding out the top 5. Time for the final here, and as we all know and as we've heard before, the winner of this heat is the winner of the African Open. Everything that happened before this is no longer important. As we look at Troy Snyman coming over early, he's moving across. Does he know Gazi and Joaquin are both there? There was a lot of wheel contact, and it looks like the big winner there was Joaquin de Oliveira coming across into turn 1, getting the whole shot ahead of is that Troy Snyman, and Gazi Motlakai all the way down in 3rd at the moment. So Gazi, the big loser at that start, and he's dropped all the way down to 3rd, with Leviwe Sambula in 4th and Eric Haystack in 5th place. So the same 5 drivers we saw fight it out in race 1 and race 2 are now fighting it out in race 3. But once again, it's Joaquin de Oliveira leading out this final. He led most of the early parts of race 2, but a move from Gazi Motlakai dropped him down to third, and that's where he stayed. Hopefully that's not something we see here in the final race of today, the championship crowning event of the African Open. We call it a championship, it is actually a once-off event, the African Open. Winner-takes-all final here for the Minimax. 10 laps of 1.6 Ks for these drivers, and this will tell us who will be representing South Africa at the Rotax World Finals taking place in Portimao in January this year. Whether or not, obviously COVID-19 permitting. Down the inside though goes Troy Sneeman on Joaquin de Oliveira. A nice good move from him. He's saying to Joaquin, let's go together, let's get away from Gazi, because he knows that Gazi is going to be the threat here in this race. The two of them have been going at it hammer and tongs the entire season, or what of a season we could have with COVID-19. So good to see these drivers back after everything that's been going on and the lockdowns that we've endured.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see the reaction now from Gazi, seeing Troy going to the front. He's spending a lot of time. Gazi has spent a lot of time at this track. He knows every millimeter, every inch of it. And will he now react? Will he go after them soon? Or will he just sit back and think and wait for the track to come to him? And because he's seen Troy slowing down a little bit on the last few laps. But yeah, and he's still got to deal with Joaquin.
Yeah, I think Gazi might appreciate this a little bit because he has copied the man's hairstyle. It's now, as they say for Hamilton, it's hammer time for him to get onto the front of these two and get it done. But it's definitely closing that gap very, very quickly. These two just behind, they're trying to use each other to get onto it. Eric Haystack should be pushing. He's not pushing. He's going to go past instead. But wow, great move there. Gazi Motlakai catching almost 3 car links on the brakes into that right hander there. So he's right in it now. Joaquin de Oliveira, if I were him, let Gazi go past, don't fight him, and use him to fight Troy Sneeman, because it definitely looks like Gazi Motlakai's got the pace. And as we know, this is a winner-take-all final. We know there's no love lost between the two of them, Troy Sneeman and Gazi Motlakai. So for Joaquin, it would be clever to let Gazi get onto the back of Troy Sneeman, as he's done now, and fight with Troy Sneeman. Joaquin, though, not taking my advice. Clearly, my voice not getting through to him. He dives down the inside, doesn't complete the move, and that has given Troy Sneeman. He does it again, though, into the hairpin. So what he gave Troy Sneeman in 3 car lengths, he's now giving him in 5. So what was going to be a 3-way battle for the lead has now turned into 1 man out in front and 2 cars battling it out for second place. That is a massive gap to try and claw back in just 5 laps. So at the moment, though, it's Troy Sneeman leading it out with a decent gap on Joaquin de Oliveira, being chased down by Gazi Motlakai. But Gazi's not going to take that lying down. He's looking for a way past into turn 2, and he has got the job done. But unfortunately, that little battle with Joaquin has left him a lot of work to do to get onto the back of Troy Sneeman. He's only running 0.1 of a second quicker than Troy at the moment. So whether Gazi can get that hammer down and get the time needed to close that gap with only 5 laps left to go remains to be seen. But I definitely don't see it being done in this short of a period. A little bit of was it a hand gesture or no, it's a GoPro mount on the side of that radiator. It almost looked like a hand gesture from Troy Sneeman. A hand gesture just to say, come on guys, I'm waiting for you. But definitely I was wrong there. That's a GoPro mount. But Leviwe Sambudla and Eric Haystack, they got a little bit of a sniff of Joaquin's back bumper there in that move he tried to make of Gazi. So they also are hungry to close that gap. But as I said, Eric Haystack sticks it down the inside of Leviwe Sambudla, and that will slow them down and keep them off this main group. That's a Praga of Gazi Motlakai, looking good in its custom livery, but just ahead of them is the OTK of Troy Sneeman, and just behind that the Paralin of Joaquin de Oliveira. Brandon doing a lot of work with Paralin to get them onto pace, and he definitely has done nothing short of miracles to get that brand new brand into the front pack of this Minimax field. Joaquin de Oliveira looking for a way past again on Gazi Motlakai in the final lap of the final. They have closed the gap on Troy Sneeman, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. With just half a lap left to run, he's shaking his head. He thinks it's already done. He's already started nodding. I think this boy knows he's got enough of a gap going into the final corner to take the victory in the African Open. Just another quick look over his shoulder into the final right-hander. Through over the white line he goes, head down, arm up, points to his number just to show Gazi what it is. But Gazi Motlakai, I think he's looked at it long enough this season, takes second place ahead of Joaquin de Oliveira in the African Open 2020 final. It is Troy Sneeman, the winner, ahead of Gazi Motlakai and Joaquin de Oliveira. Leviwe Sambudla from Squadron Course is doing well there in 4th, with Eric Haystack from Extreme Racing in 5th place.